Tucker Carlson is out with episode 5 of his Twitter show. He commented on the deal Hunter Biden reached yesterday and the handling of his ongoing federal investigation. Let's watch some of that.
The House Oversight Committee, under its new chairman, Congressman Jamie Comer, had discovered criminal behavior after reviewing thousands of pages of the Biden family's bank records. Now, publicly, to the extent they responded at all, the White House dismissed the investigation as, of course, politically motivated. In any case, irrelevant. Hunter Biden was an adult, so his business dealings had nothing at all to do with his father, in this case, the President of the United States. Your son, while there's no ties to you, could be charged by your Department of Justice. Got that? Well, there's no tie to you. So the answer is, in fact, in the question. Whatever Hunter Biden goes down for, and we know he is going to be charged because MSNBC said so, but when that happens, that's Hunter's problem. It's got nothing to do with Joe Biden. Rest easy, America.
Carlson also recapped the charges Hunter Biden is expected to plead guilty to.
This morning, Hunter Biden pleaded guilty to pretty much nothing. Biden pled to 2 misdemeanor tax evasion charges, then entered a diversion on a federal gun charge. That's it. As far as Merrick Garland's Justice Department is concerned, Hunter Biden is done. There was no pre-dawn raid carried live simultaneously on CNN. There was no perp walk, no handcuffs, no press conference. Above all, there was no felony. Hunter Biden, who broke federal gun laws, can still carry a gun. It's like it all never happened. In fact, the Justice Department just baptized Hunter Biden. A lifetime of sins washed away in an instant. It was a secular miracle.
Glenn Greenwald had this to say on Fox News. Views since Tucker Carlson, the 8 p.m. slot on Fox with Tucker was not only consistently #1 in the key demo, 25 to 54, but routinely had 400,000 viewers or more. Without Tucker, it's crashed to worse than MSNBC levels, barely 100,000 people. Hannity in 14th place behind Joy Reid, a total collapse. So first, what did you think of Tucker's comments there on the Hunter Biden issue?
What's so difficult for Democrats to contend with is that there is a two-tier justice system. Democrats keep saying, well, Republicans have never cared about this before, and it's deeply hypocritical to be concerned about Trump's alleged mistreatment because of a politicized prosecution when they don't care about poor people, disproportionately black and brown people caught up in the criminal justice system. Hey, fair enough, it is hypocritical, but it doesn't escape the reality that there is a two-tier justice system and that it is also hypocritical of Joe Biden to have been the writer of the crime bill and to, in this instance, be able to protect his son from the consequences of the very laws, the tough on crime laws that he has backed as both a senator and now as president of the United States of America. And if you want to expose people's hypocrisy, Democrats would be better served taking this opportunity to say, okay, well, fine. If you're concerned that Hunter Biden is getting special treatment, let's loosen the laws so that regular Americans can have the same kinds of protections and grace that's being extended in this moment. But instead, they're caught up on this hamster wheel of just being angry about the fact that Republicans are having kind of a selective concern about this particular issue. Moreover, I've been thinking about this as we've discussed some of the lab leak revelations of the week and the confidence with which mainstream figures said the lab leak was crazy, now being revealed as likely to be very, very wrong about that, and all of the other things that they've gotten wrong over the years. And I've been thinking about the kind of void that has been created as we're talking about Hunter Biden and the laptop and the Burisma payments and whatever he was doing in Ukraine and getting paid for what exactly. And I was thinking about the fact that Democrats have almost not even tried to fill in that void, to offer a rationale for what is going on there. And that has allowed there to be, I think, a lot of healthy skepticism, frankly, among not just conservatives, but people that are frustrated with Joe Biden and the anemic nature of his run.
That's a good point, and it's because their institutions have not really forced them to reckon with it. The mainstream media has not put that question to them. I wonder if that's a reaction to the perception that, like, the New York Times cared too much about Hillary Clinton's emails thing, that whole, but her emails, that whole framing, that they were obsessed with it and they wrote about it over and over again, and that this is, like, in their mind, an equivalent sin, and so to overfocus on it would to draw some false equivalency between the Biden family and Trump, so they're just not going to do that. Because you're right, it's not covered. It's only being covered by the right, which Biden and Democrats can kind of just ignore as the opposition.
Yeah, and I don't know, obviously, there has been no smoking gun, and certainly Republicans have been looking very hard for it,
right,
that connects Hunter Biden's activities to the president's activities. Elsewhere in Tucker's episode, he plays a clip of an interview of a liberal reporter with Joe Biden, who frames the question to him, hey, your son is in trouble, what do you think of it? But frames it in a way that presumes that there's no connection between Hunter and Joe Biden, saying, obviously his actions don't reflect on you, but what do you think about this? And I was thinking about that presumption and the complete unwillingness to interrogate it by liberals. And it does make me frustrated that while there was so much reporting on how inappropriate it was for Donald Trump to nepotistically put his son-in-law in charge of peace in the Middle East, or the ways in which Ivana, his daughter, profited off of the administration, that there is not at least an equivalent concern about even things that are optically bad, even if they are not proven to be legally inappropriate. It's a credibility issue for both the media and the Biden administration. And while I disagree with a lot of the framing that Tucker chose to pursue in that clip, I don't think it was necessary for him to, for example, include so many pictures of Hunter Biden in the throes of his addiction with drug paraphernalia and in the middle of his dental surgery and all of the things that he included in that clip. There is a core point here that I think Democrats would do well to listen to, which is if you don't want people to come to the worst conclusions, draw the worst conclusions about this area, what was Hunter Biden being paid for as a non-expert in the gas industry in Eastern Europe? Also, the mainstream media has no credibility on Hunter Biden-related issues because of the certainty with which they rejected the laptop story. Right. So if you don't want there to be all this innuendo that has traction by Republicans, then you need to fill in the void with some explanation or some criticism of your own. Yeah. Well, Tucker also weighed in on the Biden administration's views on foreign relations.
From the administration's perspective, the concerns and the demands of, say, the Chinese government, or particularly the Ukrainian government, are far more important than the needs of American voters. We're cracking down on foreign influence. Please. Hunter Biden was a foreign agent. He never registered as one. But for years, that's exactly what he was. He sold access to his father and other lawmakers to the Chinese and the Ukrainians and countries throughout the world. There's no debate about that. The FBI has known about it for years. For years, they've had possession of Hunter Biden's laptop. But they didn't charge him for it today. They never will.
Yeah, look, I was looking for some coverage of this in a more liberal outlet, and the Washington Post is not exactly what I would call left-leaning, but there was an op-ed that they published in May by Jim Garrity, and he asked the following series of questions. He says, okay, there's been no smoking gun, there's no direct connection to Joe Biden, et cetera. But why did Gabriel Popoviciu, a businessman convicted of bribery in Romania and relatedly investigated by British authorities, pay as much as $1 million that ended up in Biden family accounts? Does anyone believe that Chinese energy tycoon Yi Jianming in 2017 gave Hunter Biden a 2.8-carat diamond estimated to be worth up to $80,000 as a gift out of the pure goodness of his heart? These kinds of questions about
Jim
10
Garrity?
million... yeah.
So he's a conservative writer for National Review.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only person who's going to be asking you these kind of questions. And I understand that there can be a just asking questions way of raising suspicion that is not vetted out. But when you have people making accusations that $10 million of foreign money has ended up in various Biden accounts from people who are not actually qualified to do the kind of work that would justify those kinds of payments, at very least, I think the public has offered an explanation. And it doesn't necessarily reflect on Joe Biden unless they can prove it, and they have been trying and haven't been able to do so that's a knock against them and those kinds of accusations.
Mainstream organizations, institutions that should be doing this kind of thing disdain the just asking. That's a slur to say you're just asking questions, huh? Like that's some sin. is to ask. Obviously, you can ask questions in a bad faith way.
Sure.
And you can ask questions from a position of like being wrong or not understanding the arguments or just trying to muddy the waters or using it as a deflection away from some other person's bad behavior to say, well, what about X?
Yeah.
But the impulse to ask questions is what should animate all of us in our line of work, in journalism and commentary. What can we do but ask the questions? I mean, they need to be asked, and sometimes the thing that everybody thinks or that the experts think, or at least the ones you're hearing from, because there's always dissent, turns out not to be quite right, or in the case of what we're discussing, re-COVID origins, pretty appallingly something else. And so you just can't have this frame that it's never appropriate to scrutinize. I mean, obviously they don't even have that frame, but they're deciding what it's okay to ask questions about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do think that historically there have been these efforts to create uncertainty in areas where there is a high degree of scientific or even political certainty by asking bad faith questions. And we've seen this with the cigarette industry. We've seen this with climate change and big oil and things like that. And because of lawsuits, we've seen documents behind the scenes that demonstrate that these companies know exactly what they're doing when they pay for and commission studies to try to disprove the links between smoking and lung cancer and things like that. So I don't want to be dismissive of why people are so skeptical about interrogating some of this stuff. But I mean, I had the experience yesterday of asking what a scientific term in a paper meant. I said, hey, statisticians, can you let me know what this means? And that was framed by people who, statisticians offered great advice and I was happy, but the statistician then turned around and said that I was an anti-vaxxer for asking the question. So, someone who I was planning to invite on my show to do further explanation before he turned around and called me an anti-vaxxer for asking the question. So, I mean, I think that's a real concern. And I don't know where to go from there, but I don't think it feels like a narrative control device at this point as opposed to a genuine skepticism of a bad faith question.
Well, we will not keep our big mouths shut. We will be asking questions here every day. More Rising right after this.